Hi friends, welcome to Non-Functional Club. Today we are going to talk about an interesting tool that is testRigor. We'll be looking into overview of testRigor by understanding its features and how it can be used for automation individually and its benefits if it is used by an organization. So let's begin. So what is testRigor? testRigor is a simple codeless automation tool. Here, whoever is writing test cases through testRigor does not need to understand any programming language. He can simply write test cases in plain English. So as we usually talk or as we detect our own features, modules in the application, similarly, if we write test cases in plain English, that is sufficient for testRigor to understand as it uses AI and machine learning. Let's have an overview of features which are provided by testRigor. This tool is totally codeless and we can easily write test cases in plain English language. We can also write reusable functions with arbitrary texts as their names. This can be used further while writing new test scripts. If there are any changes in the scripts, it is simply handled by find and replace functionality, which can change the code throughout the application. So test maintenance becomes easy. testRigor supports many type of applications like web app, mobile, and native mobile applications. It also supports native desktop app. Additionally, we can test different functionalities like API, email, SMS, phone, video, and audio scenarios using testRigor. testRigor supports end-to-end cross-browser and cross-platform tests. For example, if we want to execute a test case where we open mobile application and request for password reset, then we can even open our email on web. We can reset the password from there and log in into the application and set the new password. So this all particular scenario wherein we are switching from mobile to web is easily possible through testRigor. testRigor has built-in integration with Lambda test and browser stack, giving you nearly limitless possibilities for device and browser combinations. It also supports most popular test case management and issue management systems. testRigor comes with CI/CD support, which enables automation while new code or builds are deployed. It also has integration with different tools such as Jira, Zephyr, Azure DevOps, Jenkins, TestRail, X-Ray, GitLab, and many more. Now let's see how testRigor is beneficial over existing automation issues. Selenium tests are not truly from user's perspective because they consider underlying implementation details. So in other words, it is not black box testing, which isn't ideal for end-to-end tests. However, testRigor builds up test cases in plain English, so it reflects user interaction with the application. For writing automation test scripts, it is mandatory to have a team with good coding skills. Also, we need to be updated with new technologies. testRigor can be used by technical as well as non-technical team. It's suitable for everyone. A Selenium test case can be fragile, just like any other automation test. An example that most of us have encountered is when we change one piece of code and it breaks. In testRigor, code refactoring or developers accidentally changing some locators won't break the tests. Writing automation test case is time consuming activity. Using testRigor tool, it consumes very less time as we can use already written functional test cases, make very little changes, and the test cases will be ready. Maintaining automation suites is a difficult and it involves a lot of effort and time. As tests are much more stable, they rarely break and they are easier to maintain. Usually even developers are involved to investigate failed test cases. Here test reports are easy to understand as there are detailed automatic screenshots which are taken for each and every test step, so it becomes easy to understand test failures. We need to make many changes and complex frameworks to achieve parallel testing. In testRigor, we can achieve parallel test execution by default. We will look at the actual website to see what all features are present on the site. So let's go to the site and check out. So this is testRigor website. It provides all the details about how tool is helpful for test automation. You can just navigate and check it out. From the documentation perspective, you can find it under resources and documentations tab. So here if we see a support documentation giving us all the details of commands which can be used with different scenarios. So let us look for an example of click action. Here we find example of test scenarios with reference. So if you see, we have click cart with an example denoting about how we can use this particular functionality. So if we click on this example, here it will be giving us total explanation how this click cart has been executed. So we can see an e-commerce website which is loaded. After the site is loaded, the click cart action is performed. Here we see the cart icon is highlighted and obviously it has been clicked. So in the next page, we can see that the cart page has been loaded successfully. So in this way, the documentation is really helpful to give us total details about how we can actually use the functionalities which are provided by testRigor. As discussed in our previous slides as well, testRigor is useful in doing different types of testing. Like if we go for API testing, if we go for file uploads, phone calls, SMS messages testing, the login testing, email based testing, audio testing, database testing. Also, we can do Chrome extension testing. So all this stuff is present as a part of testing using testRigor. Let's see how we can work with tables. So if we want to work or we want to write test cases for tables, this particular page or documentation will be helpful with respect to the tables scenarios which we have. So it is again easy as we write in English. Similarly, we have to specify the commands here. So we can see an example of table wherein we have ID, name, actions and additional data in the columns field, and we have rows with segregated IDs and the data which is present here. So for example, if we have to click on a table which name is actions at the row 103 and the column will be action. So here if we want to actually click on open channel, right? So for that we can write it in this way. So click on table actions at row 103 and the column name as action. So it will automatically click on this particular option, that is option channel. Also the same, or also we can write few more commands with specifying click on table actions at row containing SPK2 and column actions. So here we have to click on the table actions, right, at the row containing. So this particular row contains SPK2 and the column is actions. So it is specifying this particular row. So these are particular ways in which you can even work with tables and specify or have an idea of how we can actually test using testRigor. Also from validations front, as whenever we write test cases, we are going to validate whether a particular stuff is present on a web page. So to validate also we have check that keyword. So check that page contains error, or check that page contains some templates, or the regex value. Also if the page returns code, that is 404. So all this particular action can be performed, or all the validations which we want to perform as against our test cases can be done through the validations which are present here. So this documentation is really helpful. Do explore the documentation before starting the scenario writing, and it would be helpful from your application's perspective. So that was about an overview of testRigor. In the next session, we'll be signing up and looking into how we can automate test cases using testRigor tool. Don't forget to subscribe Non-Functional Club channel. Hope this session was useful. Thank you.